GCSE Biology. This is a revision lesson on exercise from the topic respiration. So grab your book and grab your pen and let us begin. The lesson objectives are to 1. Describe and explain what happens in the body during exercise, and 2. Describe what is meant by oxygen debt. Why do we need energy? We need energy for things we do not think about on a daily basis. For example, to build large complex molecules such as carbohydrates and proteins. We also need energy for cell division and active transport. The obvious answer to that question, though, is for movement. Energy is needed in animals to make muscles contract, and when muscles contract, movement occurs. So whether the person is sleeping or they're moving very, very quickly, energy is needed for the contraction of their muscles. The energy required for all the activities mentioned comes from respiration. Respiration occurs in cells. There are two types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Let us now look at how exercise affects the human body. Lots of energy is required when we exercise to keep the muscles contracting. The energy is supplied aerobically. Let us now look back at the equation for aerobic respiration. So in aerobic respiration, glucose is broken down by oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water, and lots of energy is released as the glucose molecule is completely oxidized. During exercise, your heart rate increases, and this increases the flow of oxygenated blood to the muscles. The rate at which aerobic respiration occurs also increases, so more energy is released. So if the increased blood flow allows for more oxygen to get to your cells, it means that more respiration, aerobic respiration, will be taking place. It means that more carbon dioxide will be produced. And so this increased blood flow will also allow for an increased rate at which carbon dioxide is removed from our cells. Another change that happens in the body during exercise is that your breathing rate increases and you also breathe more deeply. What do I mean by that? It means that you are breathing faster and more air is entering the body when you inhale. The change in the breathing rate and depth allow for more oxygen to be transported faster to the muscle cells. So it means that more aerobic respiration will be taking place, and it also means that more carbon dioxide will be produced. But this change in the breathing rate and depth will also allow for the carbon dioxide that is produced to be removed more quickly as you exhale. So students, the changes in your breathing and your heart rate will allow for more oxygen to be transported to your muscle cells for aerobic respiration, and more waste such as carbon dioxide will be produced. But where will the body get more glucose from? Students, remember, glycogen is stored in your muscle cells, and glycogen will be broken down back to glucose, and that is where the more glucose will come from. During strenuous or vigorous exercise, meaning when you're exercising very hard, your cells use up oxygen faster than it can be supplied. The body will then switch from aerobic respiration to anaerobic respiration. Here is a reminder of what anaerobic respiration is. Anaerobic respiration is the breakdown of glucose in the absence of oxygen to release energy. And this is the equation for anaerobic respiration in our muscle cells. So it is glucose in the absence of oxygen to release energy. But students, it is only little energy that is released because the glucose molecule is not completely broken down or oxidized. And when that happens, lactic acid is produced. Let us talk a bit more about the lactic acid. When lactic acid builds up in the muscle cells, this results in muscle fatigue. The muscles will not contract efficiently, and then oxygen debt is created. So students, our body needs to get rid of the lactic acid that builds up in the muscle. Lactic acid diffuses from the muscle cells into the blood, and it is then transported to the liver, where it is broken down by oxygen to glucose. The amount of oxygen required to break down the lactic acid to glucose is known as the oxygen debt. Students, you need to know that definition. After the exercise now, students, the heart rate and the breathing rate will remain high to supply the extra oxygen needed to pay off the oxygen debt. The bigger the debt, the larger the amount of lactic acid that is built up in the muscle cells. This means that your heart rate and your breathing depth and rate will remain higher after the exercise for a longer time. Let us look at this common 6 marks question linked to the topic. It says explain the changes that happen in the body during and after vigorous exercise. So students, you need to state the changes and then you need to explain. Whenever you're asked to explain, students, you are giving reasons. I always put the letter R above explain, right? So you're stating the changes and then you are giving reasons for the changes during and after vigorous exercise. Let us look at the answer. So students, this is how I would present my answer. So I would first start with a heading that says during exercise. Remember, we're writing about what happened during and after exercise. So the first change is that both breathing rate and depth increases. So that is the change, and you need to write the explanation of this change now. To take in more oxygen for aerobic respiration and exhale more carbon dioxide. Another change is that the heart rate also increases, and so the explanation is to increase flow of oxygenated blood to muscles for aerobic respiration and increase the rate of carbon dioxide removal. Another change is that glycogen is converted to glucose, and the reason for that is to increase respiration. Remember now, students, the question was about vigorous exercise, and we know that during vigorous exercise, insufficient oxygen is supplied to the muscle cells. And what will happen because of that? The body switches to anaerobic respiration. Muscles become fatigued and stop contracting efficiently as the lactic acid that is produced builds up, creating an oxygen debt. So this is how I would start off the second part of my answer. After exercise, I would write that little heading there. The heart rate remains high. You will continue to breathe deep and fast. So you need to explain this now, students. To pay off the oxygen debt is the amount of oxygen needed to break down lactic acid, which will be converted to glucose in the liver. Students, I hope you now have a better understanding of this topic. Thank you so much for watching and all the best in your exams. Bye bye.